Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are taking another look at the top 120 episodes, at least our top 120, and that number may change a little over time. But this is our second go round at naming some of our favorite episodes and why they mean so much to us. But before we dive into that, because that's just going to be a great topic, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I started watching Supernatural in season 3. I started writing fanfic in 2012, and I am also one of the co-hosts for the podcast. So get this, the Lore of Supernatural fanfic on Spotify.
Very good. Elektra?
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and I started watching Supernatural from that very first episode.
Lola?
My name's Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer, and I started watching Supernatural that very first episode because I watched everything that was on the WB back then. So,
and I'm Gail Martin, and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. And I fell in love with the boys halfway through season 11, and I've been an obsessed fan ever since. So diving back in, we covered a lot of territory the last time, but let's kick off some more favorite episodes. Carole?
I'm going to start with Monster Movie. I just loved Monster Movie. There's a lot of great humor in it. I also loved that they went to black and white for it. I'm a huge fan of bad horror movies, monster movies, Japanese monster movies, the old Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolf movies. I love all that stuff, all the campy, cheesy, it's right up it's my jam. And that they went to black and white for this was just so perfect. The humor is great. Todd Stashwick as the shapeshifter / vampire, man, he just plays it to the teeth. He does not hold anything back. He throws himself into it, and that's why it works, because he so embodies that kind of monster from that kind of monster movie. I mean, he just really, went into that. It has so much fun chewing the scenery and everything, but yet remembers to ask if there's garlic on the pizza. And oh, by the way, he has a coupon. So, of course, we have the beautiful blonde heroine. We have, and she gets at some point clad in a silky negligee, because of course they are. And we get to the final blissful moment of seeing Dean in lederhosen.
And of course, he looks great.
Of course he does, his little bow legs. So it's really fun. It's lighthearted. And I just it was early in the season still, and I just super enjoyed it.
Okay. Elektra?
The monster at the end of the book. Sorry, at the end of this book. There's a whole lot of important things that happen in this episode. We're introduced to the concept of prophets. Well, first, starting out, it takes place in Kripke's Hollow, so we can all get a good laugh about that one. They're doing their typical, where FBI guys, they go into the comic book shop and the guy stops them in their tracks and asks them if they're LARPing. So we can all get a good laugh about that. And then they discover the supernatural books. So we get the whole meta thing going about, wait a sec, there's books about them? And of course, they get into that whole weird thing where as they're walking up to the house, he's writing about them walking up to the house. And now we found Chuck, and Chuck becomes a very, very important character later. We discover about archangels. There's just so much cool stuff that gets packed into that one episode. Even though we're at this point, it's Chuck is a prophet of the Lord, and he's just, their lives have come to him, and God, he is, and even all the jokes about he thinks he's God and he's a mean and capricious God. And it's just funny and it's silly, and I love every bit of it. And I loved it all to the point where I didn't want Chuck to be God. I was happy with him being a prophet because he was such a silly prophet.
Well, and we also got to see the guys doing their laundry.
Yeah. And Sam's brooding shoulders.
But it was so meta the way they did their laundry. I'm sitting in a laundromat reading about how I'm sitting in a laundromat reading about it's just, where else would you do that scene?
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah,
How
I
about
love that episode. It even the moment where like they're trying to prove to the publisher that they're really good fans so that she'll tell them where they can find Chuck, and they reveal their tattoos, and she's like,
you really
"Oh,
are
of
fans."
course." And she's got hers. You know. Oh my gosh.
But he doesn't like to be disturbed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Lola, how about you?
Well, that segues perfectly into my favorite episode, Don't Call Me Shirley. So it's season 11, episode 20. And I just rewatched this like the last hour, so it's fresh in my mind. Oh my God, there's so many awesome lines. Y'all were talking about bugs, Elektra's favorite episode. There's a line where Chuck hands something to Metatron, and Metatron is first trying to say, oh, it's great, yeah, but it's obvious he doesn't really like it. And Chuck says, wow, I haven't gotten that kind of reaction since I handed in bugs. It's so meta. And let's see. At one point, Chuck says he's going to do a sequel series called Revolution. And we know that was one of the shows that Kripke did that was canceled after a year or whatever. Wah, wah. But even in the show, Chuck said, yeah, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I just love Metatron and Chuck's there's all of their scenes together. Metatron with tears in his eyes going, why did you leave me? I just want to know why you left me. And it just makes me feel like I'm looking at every little boy or every little girl who ever got abandoned by a parent. And it just breaks my heart. I'm like, oh my God, he's just a little boy. Inside, Metatron is just a little boy, wondering why his daddy left him. And they had a funny exchange where Metatron says, so am I going to be an angel again? And Chuck goes, yeah, no, that's never going to happen again. And Metatron goes, probably a good call. So that was really funny. And we get to see Rob Benedict singing and playing guitar at the end, which is really nice. I love that song. I want Alexa to play it now forever because it's just such a good song. It was just such a great episode. There wasn't a bad moment in it. We had some scenes with Dean and Sam. Sam is looking at his iron shirts, and he tells Dean, stop ironing my shirts with beer. And I'm like, how do you doesn't it smell like beer? I mean, I love beer, but I don't think I want stale beer. I don't think I want old beer smell on my t-shirts. I don't know. But yeah, it was just a really great episode. Of course, you had the people with the darkness stuff going all in them. That was really freaky. But then at the end, it's like Chuck's like, all right, we'll undo it. And that's when the boys realize he's Chuck. And it ends on that. And I guess it's probably when we realized he was Chuck, that whole episode, I think. So it just ends with Chuck telling the boys, well, we need to talk. And it's like, what gonna happen next?
I'm going to toss out mint condition.
Okay.
I love this one because, it's kind of monster of the week one. We have we have some strange deaths, of course we do, and the boys go to look into it. But first, they see this video about a guy who says he got beat up by his action figure. And
Mhm.
when they go to investigate, the guy's walking that back. He knows it sounds crazy, but he's not very believable. And so they go to visit the comic store and they find out a lot more. And of course, Sam and the woman who runs the comic store have a lot in common. And Dean and one of the guys who works at the comic store just totally geek out over Dean's favorite horror movie franchise. And so they are trading quotes and they're, well, what do you think is the best episode, the best in the series? And it's this absolutely normal fan discussion about, well, which of the ones is your favorite? Well, why? Well, because in this one he did this, and in that one, it's just very fandom. And then of course there's the time to slice and dice guy who is out to get everybody with a hatchet. And you've got a wonderful chase scene through a hospital at night, and Dean getting to fight his favorite movie bad guy, and then finding out maybe that isn't as great as he originally thought, because this guy is not the easiest thing to kill. And I just loved it for all those things. We get to see Dean really geek out about a movie series that he loves. And, Sam is kind of less enthused because our whole life is a horror movie. Why do you want to watch them? And then the little touches, like when they get locked in the comics book store and Sam creates a bomb out of household cleaning chemicals in a Scooby-Doo lunchbox. And the girl's just watching him going, how do you know how to do this? And Sam says something about, I didn't have the best childhood, but it's just a delightful episode, and it's a terrific monster of the week. And it lightened up a serious moment in an otherwise very serious season. So definitely one of my favorites. Back to you, Carole, round two.
I really enjoyed that. And the moment when Sam and the girl who's the clerk, and they've been hiding behind the counter, and the bomb goes off and they're like, whoa, it's just the cutest thing. All right, I'm going to go back to the past again. Let's see. I have to talk about Just in Bello. I love that episode so much. It's an important one in the storyline because we have the fabulous moment where Victor Henriksen, who's been doggedly pursuing our boys through thick and thin, finds them, but not only finds them, he finds out about the truth. He finds out that the demons are real, all the monsters are real, all of that is real. And unfortunately, he kind of finds out up close and personal. So he's not too happy, but you know what? He takes it on the chin, and he's like, okay, so what do we do so we come out of this alive? What do we do to survive? And you have to admire his immense practicality and his ability to absorb this enormous shift in the world so resiliently, and just move on to what needs to be done. This is where we realize what an amazing hunter Victor would have been, what an incredible asset he would have been. He was knowledgeable, he was skilled. Speaking as viewers, he was a fine looking man. He would have been a good addition to the stable. But the fact that we see him go through this transformation and we see him adapting to it, and we're so happy they have a new ally. Instead of pursuing them, he's now going to help them. And he starts off by ensuring that they that they died. So nobody's going to be looking for them again anymore. They died in the helicopter crash. That's it. Everybody's off their tails. There's no more Dean as the bank robber or the, you know, serial killer or anything. And so we go through all of that. And then at the very end, we lose him. And after everything we've seen him go through in the episode, we feel the loss. It's not just like, oh, another person died, you know, on the way to whatever. It's a loss. It's a palpable hit because he had so much to offer and he'd already engaged with the boys so much that, you know, it's a real tragedy. In addition to that, we have some great characters. We have the other FBI guy who gets possessed and everything. But we also have the lovely Nancy, as portrayed by the even more lovely Amy Garcia, who is just delightful. And if you have not seen her on Lucifer, oh my gosh, please check her out because she creates a really, really fabulous character on that show. So here, she's a one episode character, and yet we feel like we know her so well in her little white blouse and her little, you know, sweater vest and her, you know, she's very prim. And she's got her little crucifix, you know, she's a virgin. You know, we learn a lot of things about her, but she's not a pushover because when the other deputy and she are laying out the salt and she's like, I'm going to have so much sex when this is over. Because she's like, why was I saving it? He looks at her and she's like, oh, but not with you.
Oh.
So, you know, we have a lot of great byplay like that. We see Sam come through with some wonderful things like recording The Exorcism, and they play it over the speakers of the station. It's just, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of angst, there's humor, and at the end, it all wraps up into this enormous ball of loss because everybody dies.
I was so sad when that happened. I was so sad.
Terrible. Yeah, it's terribly sad. And it's an important plot point because when Ruby version 1 comes back and says, my plan is the one with the lower body count, she's now gained an advantage. She's got a foot up on them now because their plan didn't work. And we don't know yet about how much of this is manipulation, of course, but you know, at the time, they're just like sitting there with egg on their face. And she's the one, she's the victor. She's the victor. Ha ha. See what I did there? So it's just a beautiful, beautiful episode.
Okay. Elektra.
All right. The girl with the Dungeons and Dragons tattoo. This is near the end of season 7. And this one is all about finding things and all about loss. We come to find out that Frank, who's been helping them out through most of season 7 is Leviathan. Something's happened to Frank and they get the trigger email that someone's got his hard drive, so he must be gone. And come to find out, they track it and it's in the middle of Dick Roman's HQ. So they go to find it and they meet Charlie Bradbury, who's one of my very favorite slow time out or part-time characters through all of this. I adore every episode she's in, played by the delightful Felicia Day. I watch Felicia Day in everything.
Uh-oh.
We lost your audio. Oh,
Now she's frozen.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and pick up and we'll let Elektra catch us back up.
Okay, well, I watched several episodes today. I decided to go for some ones that aren't the spectacular ones too. Some of the smaller ones that still had an impact on me. One of the ones was, and I guess you can't really call it small, but it's not like meta or as funny as like some of the others. All Hell Breaks Loose 1. So it's season 2, episode 21. And one of the things I liked about it, I liked they had the small town, all the 23-year-olds wake up in an abandoned, haunted town. And one of the things that I liked about that is it reminded me of a show that was on like 15 years ago for one season. I think it was called Persons of Interest, not the 5-year-long show that I liked too, but it was a different show. It was like a summer show. And it was only on for a year, but it was the same kind of premise. People wake up in an abandoned town and they don't know why they're there. They don't know who they are, anything like that. So I liked that sense of, unsettled because you don't know where you are. You don't know what's going to happen. And then you have all these people from different places, Soldier, we see Ava again, and they all have been touched by Yellow-Eyed Demon. They all have blood in them and can do different things. And Yellow-Eyed Demon, he has this conversation with Sam. Was it Sam? Yeah, I think Sam talked with him. And they just kind of walked and talked, and we learned a lot about Yellow-Eyed Demon and what he was planning and what he thought. And, he's just so sinister. And you really get the feeling of how sinister he is when he's talking. And, oh, it's just so creepy. This is when Sam finds out that he was it was Sam because Yellow-Eyed Demon showed Sam himself as a baby getting the demon blood, and it was so freaking. You saw the flashback with Mary and you see it happen. She's pulled up and it's like, oh, it's so heartbreaking. It's like, oh, poor little Sammy, little baby Sammy. So it's just a really big piece of the puzzle coming together, especially for, it being season 2. This was a really big part of it. And, we thought Ava was so nice, so sweet, and they really like to turn the innocent ones into complete creeps. They love to do that. So she was in it for herself, and it was all a game to her, and she was going to win. And I was like, wow, she turned nasty. So I thought it was a very good episode.
Well, Carole brought up Juice and Bellow with Victor, so I'm going to bring up Night Shifter because it is another terrific episode. It's kind of monster of the week, but it also advances the plot. It's got some amazing music, and this is where we first meet Victor. And he gets, this is where Ronald is excited because he thinks there is a monster that with flashing silver eyes, and Sam and Dean have to, they know it's a shifter, and it's got hostages. It's been moving around, stealing from banks, and then Ronald kind of jumps the gun and takes over the bank, and they have to go in to save him. And it all goes downhill from there because the monster is in the bank with them, and now all the cops are outside, and the FBI comes, and there's Victor. And we have that memorable phone call with him and Dean going, I know about your daddy. I know how he raised you. I know about Sam, the Bonnie to your Clyde. And Dean just snickers and goes, well, you're not wrong about that part. And
what a great line.
And so now you have a cat and mouse game between Victor and Sam and Dean, and as well as trying to deal with the shifter that is loose in the bank and killing people. And of course, poor Ron gets shot. He was really somebody that I would have liked to have seen be around more. I would have loved to have seen him be kind of this klutzy hunter. So I was very sorry that he was only a 1-episode character and met a tragic ending. But in the end, Sam and Dean swap uniforms with a couple of the SWAT guys and sneak out. And we're not entirely sure what's going on until they get in Baby and pull their masks off. And one of the best music cues in the series is Styx Renegade when they are, escaping. And Dean just says, we're so screwed. This is now screwed on a much bigger level than they've ever been screwed over before. Just wait, it gets worse. You know, pretty soon you'll be fighting God. You'll know what it really is. But up to this is big for them. So, and of course, this puts them on the run and causes a lot more trouble. So it kicks off a lot of other things in the series, but it's also a good, solid episode just in and of itself with a whole lot to love. Back to you, Carole.
I just love that episode. Yeah, the music cue is breathtaking. And yeah, it's just so beautifully done. This time I'll go to the other end of the spectrum and I'll go for season 11, episode 17, Red Meat. Red Meat is kind of brutal. Sam and Dean are, trying to save this couple from werewolves. Sam is pretty much left for dead. Dean hates to leave him, of course, but he's also got to save who he's got to save, and promises Sammy that he'll come back for him. Unbeknownst to him, one of the man in the couple says, well, we can't deal with, he suffocates Sam, so just to make sure he's dead. So we have Sam left mortally wounded in this deserted cabin, Dean going off, werewolf fighting. The werewolf fighting is intense, but the real struggle is Dean leaving Sam there with his presumably mortal wounds, if not in fact already dead. Dean is struggling with that to the point where he kills himself to make a deal with the Reaper. Is this the first time we see Billy? All of a sudden it dawns on me, I don't remember if we've met Billy before, or if this is when we meet her.
I think they've met her before, but it's still early in the relationship.
Okay. Yeah. So in the meantime, however, what he doesn't know is Sam is alive. He's not well, but he's alive. And we get to see a marvelous sequence of Banff Sam, who has been shot in the belly and yet manages to kill a werewolf, right? And then get out of the cabin, find the Impala, get to the hospital, save Dean just before the man of the couple who got bit turns into a vampire to kill Dean and kills the werewolf. I mean, it's just, and just because Sam does all of this stuff, don't think he's just like, he's like in agonizing pain. It's Jared Padalecki just like, it's a really terrific performance from him as he struggles to get through this, because he knows he's got to go save his brother. His brother, in the meantime, is sacrificing himself to save Sam. And this poor couple, well, of course, the guy's a vampire. I keep saying vampire. The guy's a werewolf, so we kind of have to write him off. But the poor wife she doesn't know what the heck's going on. Her life's been upended. And we have that incredibly poignant moment where she's sitting there pretty much in shock. And Dean's like, are you okay? And she's like, well, I just saw the man I love die. And I mean, how can anyone be okay after seeing the person they love die like that? And you see Dean's haunted face and realize, of course, he knows, because he feels the same way about his brother. He had to leave his brother, who he spent his whole life protecting, dead. So it's a very strong monster of the week with the whole werewolf hunting, but we see both boys separately giving really strong performances in their prime directive, which is for each of them to save the other one.
Okay. Now, like a ghost, Elektra is fading in and out, but I hope she comes back. In the meantime, Lola, how about you?
Okay, so I wanted to seek out some of the darker ones, the more moodier ones, because Gail, I think we were talking about Kim Manners in the chat. It might have been
Yeah.
last night. So I loved him from the X-Files. He was a really big part of the X-Files, and anything he did was always really gloomy and just very dark and moody. And so I rewatched Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, season 2, episode 4. And one of the things I liked about it had a ghost. And of course, she's conjured. It's not just a ghost. She's conjured by, magic. And the boys have to figure out who's doing the magic. And of course, they get the wrong person until they devastate a grieving father, par for the course for them. And they have to unravel the mystery. Is it the best friend? Is it, this person? Is it that person? And of course, they do at the end. There's a nice little scene where Dean walks in on Sam and he's watching porn. It's like, Sam? It's like, okay. And he's like, and Dean's like, no judgment here, keep going. So that made me laugh. But otherwise, it really wasn't a laugh fest. But I love the gloominess. I just love the plotting of Kim Manners' episodes. He directed this one. Now, the only problem is it's literally dark. And I was watching it on my Kindle while I was at work. So I was doing this thing. Is that the ghost or is that the boyfriend? I can't tell. What they say? So that's the only problem. Those episodes are best served at night with the 50-inch or larger TV. So if I didn't have to work, I would have done that. But, I did what I had to.
Okay. I liked Of Grave Importance. Now, this is season 7. It's after Bobby has died and he's haunting the flask. And this is the infamous Annie with the foxholes. And turns out that she's gotten to be really good friends with Sam and Dean and Bobby on different occasions. But she's a hunter. And I again, another
Makes you wonder about John.
yeah. Could be. She's another character that I really would have loved to have seen in more than one episode because she was very self-possessed. She was a good hunter. She was very independent. Just, something got the drop on her. And as that happens in the hunting life, and of course they are looking into this haunted house, and it's really haunted because it turns out that there is this particularly strong ghost that keeps trapping these other ghosts in the house and doesn't want to let them go and has been keeping people trapped there or spirits trapped there for a long, long time. And so Sam and Dean have to figure this all out with some help from Bobby, who is a ghost himself, and Annie, who is also a ghost. So you also had a lot of funny comments because Bobby and Annie are limited in what they can do. They can knock things off, they can knock things over, but they're ghosts. And the only ghost that really has a huge amount of power is the bad guy. And so I'm a sucker for anything with ghosts in it. So it's a haunted house, it's ghosts. Yeah, I'm right there for it. And it was, again, another kind of monster of the week one, but those are sometimes some of my favorites because they leave some of the heavy arc stuff to a minimum, and we just get to see the guys doing what they do. Carole, back to you.
And also those monster of the week ones are so good at presenting these one-off characters or occasionally recurring characters that really help kind of flesh out their world. We focus on the brothers, but there are other people in the world and we get to see them reacting with them and functioning with them. And that's really enjoyable. There's just so many yummy ones to choose from. All right, let's go with, we're talking about dark and moody, right, Lola?
Yeah, my next one's dark and moody too.
Abandon all hope.
Oh
yeah. So that title, pretty much says it all. they went to try and face down Lucifer, but instead they, have to fight off a bunch of hellhounds. Bobby can't go because he's still in the wheelchair, but Ellen and Joe are with Sam and Dean. And as things do often, sadly, it all goes south. And Joe is mortally wounded by a hellhound. Sam and Dean rig up, as they are so adept at doing, rig up bombs and give Joe the dead man switch. And Ellen, it's just a heartbreaking scene, because Ellen, of course, stays with her daughter.
She doesn't want to live without her daughter.
Well, and doesn't want to leave her daughter alone in this, and it's just, man, the two of them, Alona Tull and Samantha Ferris, just play that scene so intensely. It's really, really, and the Sam and Dean, you can see, are just devastated to have to leave them, but they do. And, and it's a terribly sad scene. I think I cry every time I see it. And so it all comes to naught, and they face Lucifer, and it doesn't work, and everything's bad. It's just all bad. So yeah, abandon that hope, because you ain't gonna find any in that episode. But boy, is it well done. Super well.
Lola?
Well, it's still dark and moody, and ghost. I was on a ghost kick. I chose Roadkill, season 2, episode 16. One of the things I liked about this is it kind of reminded me of true lore that you hear. So the premise is that Sam and Dean find out that every 15 years or whatever, or every few years, there are accidents, and somebody almost runs into an old grizzly ghost man. And so there are, tons of lore about ghost in the road. You almost hit them, but then they're gone, or you see them out your window and then they're gone. So Ghost of the Highway is a pretty big urban legend in this country, and probably others too. So I like that it harkened to that, and definitely very dark and moody. Now, of course, there has to be a twist, and it's something I think we all saw coming. It turned out the grizzled guy wasn't the only ghost. Now, what confused me, though, is the ghost that they were talking to the whole time didn't do the frazzle thing. So I don't know if that was before they figured out the frazzle thing or what, but that threw me off, because I was wondering the whole time. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's going to be a ghost, but she's not doing the frazzle thing. What's up with that? But I like Trisha Helfer. She was on Lucifer, speaking of Lucifer, and Battlestar Galactica. I think she's one of the best actresses. I just love her to death, and she was so good on this. And I love the song House of the Rising Sun that they play throughout it. Oh, and one of the things I thought was so beautiful was at the end, you actually saw her go into the light. That's not something we usually see. When we might see like bright lights go into the sky, but we don't see someone and the look of beauty on their face as they're going in. And she actually walked into the light, and I love that. And that made me feel good. It was like a nice little fable.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also love the whole story in that we find out that the mean old guy was actually a really loving husband who was devastated by his wife's death, and they find the diary and stuff. I loved all of that. They could have just been like, oh, he was a mean old guy, but no, he had this whole little piece of the puzzle on his own. And I just, that to me is just such a great hallmark of those early seasons where everything was really fleshed out. It wasn't just, color in the color by numbers.
And
back.
So what's your next episode?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh God, I need to jump right in.
Yes.
Hey, I have no idea what you've been doing while I was gone. So
Well,
I've got to,
if you
I
pick
guess
one, we
I,
can tell you.
what?
If you pick one that we've already done, we'll tell you.
Okay, how about Live Free or Twy Hard?
We have not done that one.
You've not done that one. Great. Okay. I really like this because it showcases all the different kinds of vampires, the sparkly fake kind. Really, does that work when you're trying to pick up girls, or the actual real scary kind? And we even get to see Dean as a vampire and realize just how scary and how much we really don't want our friends to be real honest to God vampires. Although, you know, maybe it's okay if they just sprinkle a little glitter on their face now and again. And it's this episode we realized that maybe there's something seriously wrong with Sam in season 6, because I mean, we all knew that he saw Dean being bitten and he didn't do a darn thing about it. And, you know, there's an old Campbell family cure for vampirism. Who knew? What else is hidden there in Samuel's library? There's a lot of really cool things there. We get to see just how creepy some of the Twilight stuff is. You know, in how Dean goes to see Lisa and say goodbye. You know, there's a lot of analogs there with all the creepy stalker stuff in Twilight. It really isn't sexy at all when there's a vampire. No, not really. But we got to meet the alpha vamp and discover that really alpha's not fun to mess with. And we just discovered there was all sorts of underlying scary stuff going on that maybe we needed to figure it out. It got us in really deep into season 6. I love the pickup stuff in the bars. I loved getting into the whole, well, they turn the pretty ones and they go pick up the girls, and then the girls can get us the guys, and we're building an army.
Okay.
I mean, because vamps are apparently smarter than we thought.
Apparently so.
And they are going to be a very pretty army.
I'm going to toss out Hunted. Now that's a season 2 episode. This is where we, you know, Sam and Dean are at odds because Sam's upset that John told Dean if he can't save him, he might have to kill him. And so he goes looking for more of the Azazel's special children. Dean is, you know, freaking out because he doesn't know where Sam is, and he didn't want Sam to leave. And we see Ellen in the roadhouse and Ash. And of course we have Gordon Walker, who is a great hunter, but his personal morality and ethics are like way skewed, and
he's a little bit narrow-minded, you know. He gets focused on one thing, and
yeah, and he is definitely of the, if it's supernatural, kill it, there are no shades of gray. And of course he's now focused on Sam because he's heard rumors about a demon army and a leader for the demon army, and that's going to be Sam, and so he's got to take him out. And he tries to shoot Sam and Ava. Ava, at this point, we don't know is bad. We're not entirely sure she's flipped just yet, but it comes soon. And Ava tries to warn Sam that she had a vision and she saw him die. And here are the details so you can avoid dying. And Gordon tries to shoot Sam. Dean and he have this great fight on top of a building, but Gordon gets the drop on Dean and knocks him out and drags him away. And you have that great scene in the abandoned house where he's got Dean all tied up. And Dean does manage to warn Sam with Funky Town when Gordon lets him talk to him. But he's got Dean all tied up, and he's got tripwires in the other room, and he has grenades, and he's intending to blow Sammy sky high. And this does not go over well with Dean. And even, you know, completely tied up and gagged, Dean is shooting laser eyes at Gordon. We know that he's going to rip him apart as soon as he gets out of that chair. And you have that heart-stopping moment where Sam knows about the tripwires because of Ava. Dean, of course, has no idea that Sam knows, and both of the tripwires go off, and Dean is just completely, heartbroken, murderously angry. And Jensen manages to convey so much when he's gagged with a bandana. And then of course Sam gets the drop on Gordon, and they manage to get Gordon. They don't kill Gordon, but they think they're going to put him away in prison for a while. It doesn't really take, but there was just a lot of good angst and hurt comfort, and the boys, of course, are back on the same page by the end of it. So it was a good, solid episode, and it also did a lot to advance the plot arc for season 2. All right, back to you, Carole.
I'm going to end on a light note because we needed one. And I just was looking at it, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, where did it go? Swap meet, which is just plain fun. Sam ends up getting body swapped by this kind of dorky, nerdy, guy who is just doing dark magic to impress a girl. And so he sees Sam and he's like, oh, I'd like to be him. Well, who wouldn't? Either be him or be with him. He's not that picky. So he swaps with Sam. We have the hilarious scenes of the guy being Sam and getting picked up in a bar as he's drinking his banana daiquiri. But he says, I would love to have the sex with you.
Yes.
The sex. Although when she comes out in her little dominatrix outfit, he's kind of like, oh, this is a little more than I was ready for. But we also have the delightful scenes of Sam as the dorky kid and not finding out that he didn't, finding out the hard way that he couldn't, eat bread and stuff. And that the kid was destined to be locked into this nerdy, existence and stuff. So both sides are just super well done. Jared playing the nerdy kid, I'm sorry, I don't remember the actor's name, but him playing Sam. Dean's kind of like something off of Sam, but he's kind of like, what? Okay. It's hilarious. It's just hilarious. Yeah, somebody dies, but who doesn't? They always do in Supernatural. It's the bad, greedy kid, so we don't care. Yeah, it's just funny. It's just funny. And, sometimes you just need that.
Okay. Elektra.
Back to me again.
Yes.
Wayward Sisters. I know it's not your favorite episode, but
Okay.
I love that the women come together. I love first we get to see that Claire is now a competent hunter, and she takes out a couple of werewolves, no problem, rescues the girl, and she gets called in with echoes of that very first episode. Sam and Dean are missing. I haven't heard from them in a while. And we gather together, all the women, Jody, Donna, Claire, Alex, and off we are to the races. They find a way to get off to find where the guys are. And here we are trying to put together a rescue mission to find them. And I love that it's all women and that they're working together, and girl power can do just about anything. And it's great to see the synergy between them, and that it's the girls that go and rescue Sam and Dean, who are sitting in the bad place, toasting Lizard, and trying to keep themselves alive because they're in a jungle and they got nothing. And, you know, we finally get them back, not without, you know, losses. But I really, really, really wish that that had come together and turned into something, because I really could have stood to see them together on a weekly basis with some of our favorites stopping by and giving them, you know, guest shots.
Okay. Lola.
I'm tapped out. I had 4 and I've done 4. Elektra, would you like to take my spot?
I'm good. I mean, you hit at least one of the ones that I had prepped.
Well, I'm going to mention one more, and that's The Usual Suspects. This one was another monster of the week. You've got Sam and Dean getting arrested, and just some priceless banter there with them trying to do good cop, bad cop, and neither of the boys were falling for it. And of course, now I'm blanking on her name, Linda Blair from The Exorcist is one of the detectives, and it's a real puzzle in terms of figuring out the one clue that is coming in over and over again doesn't seem to make any sense. And then Dean finally figures it out. Sam tracks it down, and they realize that the other detective is actually the bad guy. And of course, complication, he's, you know, the love interest of the other detective. And so, you know, it really gets angsty. And in the end, she lets Sam and Dean off because she realizes that they were innocent and it was this ghost trying to point a finger at the killer. And as they're walking away, there's a comment about, you know, it's kind of chilly out. I could really go for some pea soup. And of course, that's a nod to the whole Exorcist thing. So it was a good monster of the week. It had a famous guest star, had some nice
2 famous guest stars. Jason Gedrick was the other detective.
True. And, you know, it had some nice in-jokes as well. Well, folks, we, of course, had no problem filling our hour, and we'll be back with more of our favorite episodes. But for now, tell us, please, where we can find you online, starting with Carole.
I'm on Facebook, often on continual panels, and in the Supernatural TFWNC group. On Twitter, I am true_firesign10. On Instagram, I'm firesign10. Also on AO3, where all my fic is, mind the tags.
Okay. Elektra.
Elektra Hammond. You can find anything you want about me at untilmidnight.com, and I'm Elektra at Wandering Shop on Mastodon.
Lola.
My name's Lola Lariscy. You can find me online. My website is lolalariscy.com. I'm on Instagram. I think that's Lola Lariscy. I don't remember. I want to do Mastodon, but I haven't done it yet. I really want to do the new one, Blue Sky, but I'm not cool enough to have an invitation, but maybe one day. But you can find me online. I'm there.
Okay. I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. All my social media, which is on just about everything, is a variation of those names. So if you spell it right, you'll find me. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business Blog, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you so much for being fantastic panelists. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more Supernatural coming up soon, so we'll see you online.